Well, hello there. Welcome to another episode of the Writers Tribe Talk Show. I'm your host, Elsa Kurt, and I just got back from vacation. I'm a little discombobulated, trying to get back into the groove of things, but here we are. I'm ready. We'll see how it goes. No promises. I'm pretty much all together here. It's literally day one of being back from vacation, and you know how it is. You're trying to get everything back in order and get back into your regular life routine. And it ain't easy. It ain't easy. But I'm very excited for our show today. We have a great guest. He is going to give us some great insights and tips. And I think you're going to find this to be really, really beneficial if you are a writer or an aspiring writer. And well, let's get into it. Here we go. All right, guys, welcome back to the show. Today we have Mark Albert on, and we're going to talk all about his books, his writing journey, and some really great tips and information that he has for us writers and authors. So, welcome to the show, Mark. Thanks for coming on.
Well, thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
Oh, I'm so happy that you're here. So this is so fun for me. I love this kind of thing. I feel like I say it every time, but it's really the truth. I get so excited when I get to talk to fellow authors who love to share their knowledge and the things that they've learned along the way that can help other authors. So thank you for being willing to do that. It's so great.
Oh, you're welcome. I love it too. It's the dream job of my life.
Yes, absolutely. Isn't it though? Like it's
Yeah,
just the coolest thing to write books and to be able to say that you're an author and to accomplish that goal. It's so awesome.
definitely. Yeah, yeah.
Now tell me a little bit, kind of give me your background. Have you always been writing? Is this something new to you? Tell me a little bit about your writing journey.
Well, when I was learning to read when I was 5 or 6, my parents bought encyclopedias. These are back in the days of the dinosaurs when if you wanted to know something, you had to go to encyclopedia to find it out. But what came with it was a set of books, and they were like classics. They had fairy tales in there, Hans Christian Andersen, and plus, like all the classic books. So I started reading, and I just loved it. I mean, I just fell into it. I just became a voracious reader. And then when I was 7, I think my mother was getting tired of being a housewife. She took a correspondence course in writing and how to write stories. And so I noticed she was at the typewriter one day and said, "Hey, Mom, what are you doing?" And she goes, "Well, I'm learning how to write a story." And the idea just came to me and says, I could do that. So I sat down and wrote a story about a lonely school desk during the summer. I've missed the kids. And ever since, I just have been a writer. Off and on through my life, I have sat down to write stories. And then I've been through a couple of careers. My last one as a truck driver, I had to give that up because I had this incident in a dentist chair. They told me I had a seizure. Um, they never did find anything wrong with me, but they won't allow me to be a truck driver anymore, bottom line. So I had to find something. I started writing, and I found a teacher, Cara Stein, who was forming a group of people to learn how to market books, basically. So I went through her class, I found my first client, and she helped me get that client's book to Amazon bestseller status. And that's what I've been doing ever since, about the past 2 years.
That's amazing. What a great journey. And I love that you started so young. And I especially love that you kind of learned by example that you saw your mom doing that and that sparked the fire. And that really goes back to, what they say so much, that read to your children, expose them to literature,
Oh,
let
yeah.
them see you reading. And what a perfect example of why you do that as a parent, because you learn by example. And here you are now, a published author who's helping other authors as well, which is so, so cool.
Yeah, it definitely set me on the course. I've tried to, I read to my kids, and some of them read, some of them don't. My son has never been a reader except for the Harry Potter novels. He just absolutely, he couldn't put them down. I'd get the new one. This is when they were first being written. I'd buy him a new one. He would read that book until he finished it. He wouldn't put it down. I mean, if it had to go through the night, it couldn't get him to stop. So I think reading is important for all of us because that's the way we really teach each other and learn from each other is through stories. And what greater way than being able to give a child a book and a story to learn with.
That's so true. And that's like, and you probably say it too, to, your authors that you work with, that, whenever they ask, how do I become a writer? How do I become a good writer? And the answer is really the answer is read a lot, read everything, read all different types of work, read the type
Yes,
of work that you want to write. And that's like, and I think people think that we're being snarky when we say that, but really that's how you become a great writer, by being a great reader.
yeah,
So that's the first tip,
absolutely.
right?
Absolutely, yes, yes. If you ever try to write, it's not going to work if you don't know, you don't have a background.
Yes. Oh, that's so true.
Yeah.
Now tell me a little bit about the first book you wrote. What prompted? Is a children's book, right?
Yes,
Tell me a
yeah.
little bit about that.
Well, when I was in the seventh grade, our English teacher gave us an assignment to write a story. And I don't remember this, but I must have read the Hans Christian Andersen story, The Fir Tree, where it's all about it's about a Christmas tree being neglected in the attic, and it's really it's really kind of a sad story. I
Mhm.
mean, it was a child's story from his time when death and that sort of thing was common among children's stories. So what I did, I must have had that in mind. I wrote a story about a tree in the forest that found out about Christmas and decided he wanted to be a Christmas tree.
I
So
love that. That is so sweet. And you read that to your grandchildren. Did I read correctly that you have 12 grandchildren?
I have 12 grandchildren and one great granddaughter.
Wow. Oh, that's so cool. Congratulations. That is so awesome. I have one. We have one granddaughter, and she's the center of the universe. So this
Oh, yeah.
grandparenthood is new to us, and we are loving every minute of it.
Isn't it great?
Oh
Yeah.
my God, it's so cool.
You love them just as much as your kids, but
Yes.
the added
Yes.
benefit, you don't have to deal with them when they're not fun to be around.
Yeah, exactly. You get all of the fun and then hand them back.
Yep.
Oh, so your grandchildren must love that their grandfather is an author, that he wrote a children's book. They must, I mean, I would think they must brag about that if they're old enough to. There's ones that are old enough to, right?
Yeah, I don't really know. Yeah, I've read them the book, and we're usually talking about them when I'm around them. Their
True.
grandpa, brings them gifts and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? Actually, I take it back. You're right. It's not going to be a big deal to them until they're adults and they look back on it. Yeah, you're totally right. What am I
Yeah,
thinking? Oh,
it's
now,
such
so tell me a little bit about your experience with marketing and promoting that book. That was the first book. And I'm going to assume, I shouldn't assume things, but I'm going to assume you're like the rest of us, kind of jumped right into it and then kind of figured it out as you went. Or were you one of the good ones that did like all your research and were super prepared?
Oh, I wish. No, I spent thousands of dollars with a vanity press.
Mm.
Um, they did a great book, but they don't do marketing. I mean, I bought their marketing package, and it basically consisted of here's a sheet to give to libraries and bookstores and go out and do book sales. That was about it.
Mhm.
So no, I really had no clue as to how to market a book until I met Cara Stein and got into her class.
That was such a brilliant idea to do that, to get into that class, because I know so many people in the industry who just started out and or are just starting out, and they did like we did, just kind of jumped right into it and figured it out as you went. And the internet is full of people who are there to help you. And like vanity presses, which are very misleading. They give you the idea that they're going to help you do all this stuff, and it really ends up being all on you, and you've spent all this money. And there's so many people that have had that experience. um I, I cringe every time when I hear somebody say, how much money they spent and how much work they're doing themselves. And
Yeah,
so it's great to have that experience under your belt so that you can tell other people what not to do, right? Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
So I'm so glad that you found somebody. And what's her name again?
Cara Stein,
Cara Stein. Okay.
17,000 Days, I think is her program name. But
Very
yeah,
cool. And so that was that what prompted you to write your book, The Six Elements, to help people?
yes.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about that book.
Yeah, there's basically six different areas of marketing that you really need to pay attention to get your book going, and that's what the book is about. I wrote it with the end in mind that somebody could read this book and go through it step by step and make their book an Amazon bestseller. Okay, it's
Nice.
the blueprint for doing that. And basically, like I said, there's six areas you want to pay attention to your cover. Any author that's been around knows that the book cover is immensely important. If it doesn't look right, people aren't going to check it out. They've got too many choices. There's too many other books that they're going to look at. The second one was kind of new to me, and that's the book description. Because generally, I thought, I can write 100,000 word novel. I should be able to write a little blurb for my book, but it is super important. I had like my third client, I think, where we would started to do the launch and we were advertising, and a day went by and I could see that people were clicking the ads. I was getting the click through rate was there, but nobody was buying. So I went in, I changed the book description, I made it a little more emotional, a little more, you know, compelling. And as soon as I did, we started seeing sales. So, I mean, the description is just hugely important. You want to make sure you get that right.
Yeah, people underestimate that a lot, I think. I've seen, anytime I go check out books on, Amazon, for example, and I see the book descriptions and I want to go in and like critique and tell,
Right.
maybe send them a message like, you need more,
Yeah.
that's not bringing, it's not, we're going to pass right by it. Don't, give it more, do something. And I
Yeah.
will say, I have read, I checked out your website, and we'll make sure we put that on the screen as well, so everybody knows your website. I love your writing style. I was checking out your blog and your
Thank you.
blurb for your children's book. And I love your writing style. And that is an immaculate blurb, by the way, in my opinion. I think that's so perfect. That made me want to read it. It gave just the right of information. So yeah, I'm gonna give it to you, sir. You know what you're talking about here.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, very clearly. If you don't mind, I know there's, more of, I know there's 6 elements in the book, but let's go back to cover for a minute.
Sure.
Uh, my first cover for my very first book was, well, technically not my very first, my first young adult book, a real true novel. The cover, I did the rookie mistake of using an Amazon created cover, and found out within probably about 2 weeks that there was at least, like, that I knew of 15 other people that were using the same exact cover. So that, that was like, probably one of my very first cautionary tales
Yeah,
is don't use the Amazon free covers, right?
right.
What
Yeah.
do you, what kind of recommendations do you give for people with their covers?
The first thing I think people need to do is look at their genre or whatever category they're writing in, and go on Amazon or walk into a Barnes and Noble. Look at the books that your readers are reading. In the genre. If you're writing science fiction, you're probably going to want a spaceship on the cover, right? Because most of them have that. If you're writing a rom com, you're probably going to use a pastels for color and maybe a caricature of a person rather than an actual photograph. So you just need to check out your niche and what covers are out there, what do they have in common, and how can you make a cover that's going to fit in with that and stand out.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Absolutely. And yes, I have I love to relate things to personal experiences so other people can, find the mistakes, and one of mine was through a publisher. They picked just the wrong covers for my books, and that of course affects everything about them because it doesn't represent what the story is about. And of course, that affects the market that it goes to. And then that market is disappointed because the cover is misleading. So you're right. You really want the cover to truly represent what's inside those covers, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Right. If I'm
that's,
looking for a science fiction book and I see a cover that looks kind of, like it's a romantic comedy, it doesn't matter what the title is. I'm probably going to skip it. I'm going to
mhm.
go to something else. So yeah, it's very important.
Yeah, that is great, great advice. So now what exactly do you work one-on-one with clients to help them market their books? Is that right?
Most of the time I have done groups. Right now I have a group that we get together on Wednesdays and talk about increasing their activity for marketing. And I have taken a group of people all the way through the 6 steps and done a launch for them. But most of the time, yeah, I work one on one.
Nice. Yeah. And I think that is, the books are great, like instructional things, but that hand holding through the whole process, there's nothing that replaces that, I think. And and I've worked in the past with authors and helped them through the process as well. And there's just so much, well, you know firsthand because you've been through it. It's so wonderful in every way, but it's also so stressful because you're putting your book out there, which is essentially putting yourself out there, and allowing people to critique or criticize you, and that's daunting. So you want to be able to put out the best possible product that you can,
Yeah, yeah.
and you fortunately help people do that.
When you started writing and started publishing, were you surprised at how many good writers are out there? Did that kind of take you back?
Yeah, yeah. You know what? It really did because I didn't realize how huge the author market really was, like how many of us really are out there. And
Yeah.
that can be, and I'm sure you would say the same, that that can be a little bit daunting, like almost make you feel like, oh, why should I even bother? There's so many other people out there. And,
Mhm.
you know, and I always say the answer to that is very simple. Do it because it brings you joy.
Right.
And, you know, everything else will come after that. You know, you have to work for it, of course, you know, if you want it to sell, if you want it to be a big deal, but it's going to be as small or as big as you want it to be, really, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think we all, in the beginning, we all think we're kind of unique, because we're probably the only one in our family or amongst our friends that really can write a good story. And then you start noticing, wow, I'm in this Facebook group with 60,000 other authors, you
Yes.
know, and most of
Yes.
them, the ones I've seen, they're writing a great story.
Right. Yeah, I know, you know, it's like it's this dual feeling really about it, that, you know, on one hand you're like, oh man, there's a lot of us out there. And on the other hand, there's a relief in that too. Like you're not crazy, you're not alone, because, you know, writing is such an
Yes,
isolated experience. You're just in your little bubble. It's just
right.
you. And like you just said, if you have, you know, most of you, and it's just my family as well. I don't have any other writers in my family or circle of friends. So I'm the only one. So I'm like the oddball, right? You know, you're the only one doing this and nobody can relate to it. So then you find this tribe of people that, you know, completely relate and understand what you're saying. And yeah,
Yeah.
it's like a revelation when that happens.
Definitely, yeah. Like you said, you find your tribe,
Yeah.
yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it's just incredible. And I love that moment for new authors when they realize that they're like, oh my God, and the coolest thing is I've yet to, and I'm sure they're out there, but I've yet to meet a fellow author who isn't willing to share their knowledge, which I think is just the coolest thing.
Yeah,
Um, and it amazes me every time that, you know, I've been to book events, like book signing events, conventions and things like that, and you know, and I've looked over at somebody and gone, oh, you know, I love your sign, you know, whatever the case may be, or your banner or something, and they're already writing down the name of where they got it, and you know, where you can get a discount code for it and all those things. So
right.
yeah, you know, people might think that we're nerdy, and maybe we are a little bit, but we're really cool in our own way.
Yeah, yeah, we're collaborative.
Yes, yes, that's my favorite part. I think it's really, really cool. And I don't know if you could say this, I would call myself an introvert. So like putting myself out there is always work. Do you consider yourself extroverted or introverted or extroverted
Well,
introvert?
I think on the spectrum, as I get older, I become more extroverted, but I'll always be more comfortable in my head than I am outside it. I
Yeah.
mean, I used to work with insurance sales, and my colleague and I would go to these conventions, and she was just straight out extrovert. I mean, full blown. And we go to these conventions, and it'd be great. I'd be having a good time. But there's millions of people around you that you don't know, and there's things going on. And by the end of it, I'm just like exhausted. I want to go back to my room. And she's going, "Oh yeah, let's go have a drink. Let's go party." And I go, "My God, woman, what is wrong with you? You go party. I'm going back. I'm going to watch some TV and go to sleep."
Yes. Decompress,
Yep,
unpeople for a while. Yeah, absolutely.
exactly.
Yes. You're in good company there with that mindset.
And I think writers generally probably are introverts because we have to be in our heads in order to write.
That's
Or
so true. Yeah, we have all these worlds going on inside of our head. It's, you know, sometimes hard to concentrate on real conversations that people are trying to and you're telling them, hang on a second, that sounds like a story. Give me a minute.
I'm sorry, what did you say? Yeah.
Exactly. Oh, so tell me, so you have your children's book out, you have your nonfiction help book out. I just said that completely wrong, but you know what I mean.
Right.
Are you working on anything else? Any fiction books, any nonfiction right now?
Yeah, I'm finishing up the third book of a urban fantasy novel or series. It's about four government agents that chase demons and paranormal type activities. And then as soon as that's done, I have a book that I wrote that's an epic fantasy that I'm going to rewrite it and publish that hopefully within the next 2 or 3 months.
That's so exciting. You have a lot of irons in the fire there. You've got a lot of stuff going.
Uh, yeah, I got a lot of ideas. I got, somebody the other day said, "Man, I don't have any ideas." I said, "No problem. What do you want? What genre?" I
That's
got,
so
I got tons
awesome.
of ideas.
So
Yeah,
I'm kind of stating the obvious here, but once you started writing with intent to publish, to be a published author, it sounds like the floodgates like really, really opened up. This has been like a almost a nonstop thing for you now, right?
yeah. It's really kind of strange. I've always tried to write. For some reason, the 20 some years that I was married, I could not find a story. I just could not sit down. I don't know what it was. And
Hmm.
then as soon as I was divorced, it just started flooding. And I hate to say bad things about my marriage. I mean, I get
No,
it.
of
You don't
course.
want to
Yeah.
go there, but yeah, it was really strange. But and now it's like I've got so many ideas. But after the epic fantasy, I have a science fiction trilogy in mind, and then I have a middle grade urban fantasy, kind of a Harry Potter esque type of story. So yeah, I have all kinds of ideas.
Nice. And you just said something that I think is really important for writers to hear, particularly aspiring writers. And we kind of touched on it earlier about, writing things and feeling like, oh, it's already been written or somebody's already done it and maybe they've done it better or whatever, any of those things. And I think it's so important for them to understand that it doesn't matter if it's already been written. You're writing it your way.
Yeah,
And it's super purposeful to write in the style or write the type of things that people are reading because marketability,
right,
market wise, they want more of that. Anytime you
right,
see a certain type of book that's doing really, really well, it's probably a good idea if that's your genre and you can write in that to go ahead and do it. Obviously not plagiarize or copy or just, make it the same thing, but in the same lane and you have
right.
a higher chance of it being successful. So it's the opposite of what they think a lot of times.
Yeah, and that goes back to reading to be a good writer. You like if you're going to write an urban fantasy, you should read people like Sarah Moss, um, J.K. Rowling.
Mm,
It to get a feel for what are people expecting when they pick up this kind of book, the
right.
tropes. You want to make sure you follow that.
Yes, absolutely. Well, you packed in a lot of knowledge in a relatively short period of time. Of course, I know you've been writing your whole life, but in the professional sense that you really started putting your work out there, you really just gained so much knowledge in a relatively short period of time. And that you're sharing it all like this is so awesome. Tell everyone where they can find all of your books and of course, and find you.
Well, my nonfiction and help with for authors is mjalbertbooks.com. You can find all my fiction at my pen name, which is mjfitzmaurice.com. That's FITZMAURICE.
Outstanding. And I highly, highly recommend that they go and do that. Go check out. I love your website. I love your blogs and everything. A lot of fun stuff in there. So highly, highly recommend it. Mark Albert, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show and sharing your knowledge and your stories with us. Thank you very, very much.
Oh, it was so fun to be here. Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. Okay, guys, we are at the end of our show right now, and I'm so glad you were able to join us. Thank you very much, and we will see you in the next episode. Take care.